Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you information about sports from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. And yes, from the world of NBA, Utah Jazz win against the Grizzlies 141-129, while New York Knicks managed to defeat Atlanta Hawks 101-92. And from the world of golf, Phil Mickelson is trying to focus on the upcoming Charles Schwab Challenge after his historic victory over the PGA. And yes, from the world of football, yes, Europa League final, Villarreal finally managed to defeat Manchester United in penalties 11-10. From the world of rugby, the British and the Irish Lion squad have received their first coronavirus vaccination before the summer tour to South Africa. And yes, those were the headlines. And as you know, the playoff matches are going super interesting and things are pretty much flowing in terms of the world of NBA. And to discuss the world of NBA, we have with us Lucas all the way from Portugal, who is an NBA analyst. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alamdar. Nice. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll start off with the first match. Yes, Utah Jazz's victory against the Grizzlies, and not to forget that they initially lost one of the matches, and now they managed to score 141 and 129 in the playoff round one. So what's your take, and how do you see it developing further for the Utah Jazz?
Yeah, as you said, it was a big game for the Jazz. They lost home court advantage in game one. Obviously, big difference kicking off game two was Donovan Mitchell starting the game. Right. He was quite mysteriously absent of game one. He was allegedly available to play. Then the Utah Jazz opted to let him out of the game. This was not the case in game two. He was very aggressive. He set the tone for the Utah Jazz. They jumped out and early, and they went from there. Obviously, the big story of the game was the aggressiveness of the Utah Jazz. Early in the first quarter, Jonas Valanciunas was in foul trouble. Then Dillon Brooks was in foul trouble. He fouled Spider Donovan Mitchell on a three-point play. So that was really what made the difference, because this is quite, despite being a 1-8 matchup, the starting five of each team was quite balanced, in my opinion. The problem was when Jonas Valanciunas had to be put out, then Dillon Brooks had to be put out, and the bench of the Memphis Grizzlies just could not keep up.
So looking back into the previous match, of course, that was also a very close call in terms of obviously Grizzlies fighting against Jazz, and they managed to win that, which surely is now, as you said, a home advantage. But how do you see it further developing for Jazz? Because if we look into the conferences, obviously Jazz is one of the most top-notch teams out there, but them losing against the Grizzlies, would it take them further of making them lose that confidence that they have?
Yeah, as you said, the Jazz notched the top record in the NBA. They lost home court advantage in a first round matchup, which is far from ideal, obviously. Right. They used to say that a playoff matchup does not start until one team steals a home game from the other team. That has happened from the beginning with the Memphis Grizzlies. They were the aggressors. But the Utah Jazz played beautifully yesterday. They were on a string. With Jonas on the bench, Rudy Gobert could be his best defensive player of the year himself. The Jazz played 4 out, the triples went in. Mike Conley played well, 15 assists. The bench was huge. As we know, Jordan Clarkson received yesterday the prize for the Sixth Man of the Year from his teammate Joe Ingles, which was also a finalist for the award. They had 30 in the game, and now the Jazz look to be on the way up. Now the 2 games in Tennessee, in Memphis, and they have to do what Memphis already done, which is still back home court.
Right. If we look into the first and the second quarter, the first and second, obviously, Utah Jazz were obviously out there. But if you look at the third quarter, that was the very moment in which, obviously, Utah Jazz were not up to the mark in terms of scoring. And if you look at Grizzlies, they managed to score 43 points in the third quarter. So what exactly went wrong on Utah Jazz's side at that particular moment?
As I said, Alamdar, I think the starting five from both teams are quite balanced. So what went wrong for the Memphis in the first half was the foul trouble and the starters having to be extra time on the bench. On the
Right.
third quarter, it was 5-5 with the starters again. Memphis came out looking like they had a deficit to get down, and they did. Ja Morant was electric. He had 13, I think, in the third quarter alone. He had 47.
Right.
He's the first player in NBA history with 71 points in his first two playoff games. The man is just unstoppable. He's a flash. And they behaved beautifully. Then in the beginning of the fourth quarter, in come the bench players again, and the Utah Jazz managed to reopen that gap and managed it until the end.
Right. And let's hope and wish them the very best. I'll quickly jump over to the next, obviously, game I want to talk about. We talk about the Knicks versus the Hawks. And obviously, the Knicks managing to take that victory 101-92. So what's your take on this particular match?
Well, this is one hell of a series. It looks like it's going long. Hopefully 7. It's we all want to see. Atlanta started quite good. There was a bit of a question mark on what Thibodeau would do with the starting point guard. Elfrid Payton was used in game 1. He has been a bit contested because he adds very little to the game. I tend to agree. He's obviously in for defensive purposes to try to contain Trae Young, which was electric in game 1. He started again game 2, and it was not working out. I mean, New York lacks a bit of spacing because their two go-to scorers, obviously Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, they struggle a bit with space because they are not three-point specialists. Then you have Nerlens Noel, Elfrid Payton, and the only spacer is Reggie Bullock. So it does not work. They don't have any creators. So Derrick Rose was put in quite fast, and they needed every minute and every point from Derrick Rose today. So Atlanta opened the gap quite early. Trae was magnificent in the first half. He was enjoying himself against the Madison Square Garden crowd. That the TNT broadcast had Reggie Miller, and Reggie Miller, which was an public enemy number 1 in the Madison Square Garden, was enjoying himself looking at Trae Young doing his thing. But on the second half, they turned it around. Payton was benched. Rose was put out there with the starting unit, and he managed it beautifully. He was penetrating everything. It was a vintage Derrick Rose we had yesterday from what he's still capable of doing. He played almost 40 minutes. Thibodeau knew he had to have him out there. He did. He created for others, and things went better from there for New York.
Right. But if we, like you said, that the first half is definitely a dominating side from the Hawks. But in terms of the second half, it seems as if the team actually totally lost its hope because they scored 27 points in the first quarter. In the second quarter, they scored 30 points. And definitely, at that very moment, they were on the lead 57 and New York Knicks were 44. But then a major turn of events after that first half. What exactly, in your opinion, went wrong with the Hawks in the last 2 quarters?
The playoffs, it's a game of adjustment. So Thibodeau adjusted beautifully, I think. As I said, Trae Young was able to do anything on the first half. He had 20 points, 6 assists. He had the deep 3 working. He had the floater working. The Knicks were trying to single cover him with Elfrid Payton. That was not working at all. Thibodeau changed, put in Rose so the offense could go better. And then on the defensive side, which was the big difference because the Hawks managed under 40 points in the last 2 quarters combined. And as you said, and the big difference there was the attack on Trae Young. New York decided to double him whenever possible and live with the consequences. And that's what they did. As soon as he passed mid-court, Trae Young was being doubled. The ball was putting out of his hands as soon as possible. He managed just 1 assist in the whole second half, which is so low for a creator of his caliber. And the New Yorks put the ball on the hands of the other Hawks and made them make shots, and they did not.
Very true, but surely was an interesting game. I'll surely want to talk about the next match, obviously the 76ers winning against the Wizards 122-95. How do you see this game developing, and how do you see the 76ers? Obviously, it seems more like a one-sided game, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, this is completely a one-sided series. Both this one and the Brooklyn Nets with the Celtics. The Celtics and the Wizards look like the teams that they don't even trust themselves to pass on this series. The gap is too big. Philadelphia is a very good team. Right. They are tremendous defensively. And Washington just doesn't have the weapons. I mean, we have to give them credit for the late season push they made. They did what they had to do. They went into the play-in. They won the game to get. They won the game to get into the the playoff matchup with the Philadelphia 76ers, but they just have no defense that's able to contain these Sixers. We know Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal are going to do most of the damage on the offense, and that's natural. But then when you start Raul Neto, Alex Len, and Rui Hashimura, the net positives on defense are not very good. Then Hashimura, which has been an average defender this year, he made good improvements on that end. He had 2 early fouls, and then in comes Davis Bertans, which is just a nightmare defensively for his own team. He had 0 points. He had 6 fouls in 23 minutes. Philadelphia explored him early and often. I mean, Ben Simmons was the aggressor from the beginning. He almost had a triple-double. He had a wonderful game. Him, right. Tobias Harris, and Joel all shot above 60%. So this is a complete mismatch, and all Philadelphia has to do is just to manage the series and don't have anyone injured, because Tobias Harris and Seth Curry tweaked their ankles. It doesn't look too serious, but Philadelphia has to look ahead and manage this series because, I mean, Washington is no match.
Right. One quick take that I would want to ask you, which is going to be an interesting game tomorrow, which is the Lakers against the Suns. How do you see this? Because there's going to be the game 3 and the series is currently tied. What do you see? What would be your prediction? I'll just have a quick word on this one.
I mean, I'm looking forward to this one. I for sure will check it out. I saw the first 2 games. Right. One has to feel for Chris Paul. I mean, at 30 plus years old, he played a beautiful season. He managed the Suns to the second best record in the West. He just missed 2 regular season games. Right. And then a few minutes in, he injures that shoulder. That looks like it's going to be hovering above this series all the time. But again, it's a game of matchups. The Lakers were in a string defensively on game 2. They played beautiful basketball. Right. KCP was amazing on Devin Booker, but it definitely looks like a 50-50 series. I would give the edge to the Lakers because they're the champs, and if Chris Paul is not 100%, one has to say the Lakers should be favorites on this one.
Looking forward for this match. Thank you so much, Lucas, for being a part of the show and discussing the world of NBA with us.
Alamdar, thank you for having me, and look forward to speak to you soon.
Thank you. So that Lucas obviously gave us the in-depth analysis, obviously, of the playoffs that's currently underway in terms of the world of NBA. Anyways, what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and once we come back from the break, we'll discuss more sports. So see you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, before the break, we were discussing the world of basketball, yes, the world of NBA, and so much of the happenings there. But not to forget that there's almost everything, all sorts of sports all across the globe. So we surely ensure that, we cover that. To discuss golf now, yes, golf, one of the major achievements in terms of golf is obviously the recent PGA Tour that actually happened. And Phil Mickelson actually managed to get there and grab that victory. But to discuss more in-depth analysis, because now he's actually preparing himself for the next challenge, to discuss more of this, we have with us Bilal Tariq, our national golf player, who's joining us. Bilal, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alamdar.
Great. So Bilal, tell us more about how 50-year-old, Phil Mickelson managed to get there, grab that victory, and nobody was there to be seen in terms of the PGA, the tournament. Obviously, it's a big tournament, and it has surely changed so many opinions and so many minds of sports and athletes out there.
Well, absolutely, Alamdar. As you can see that in the last couple of days, the news has been dominated, the sporting world, the news has been dominated by news of Phil Mickelson winning the PGA Championship at the age of 50, which is a world record.
Right.
It is an unsurmountable record as far as we can see, because in the golfing world, we've seen golfers, dominating the major championships, the PGA Tour, the European Tour, in the ages of 20s and in their 30s. So, Phil Mickelson winning at the PGA Championship at such a difficult and a lengthy course in Quia Island in South Carolina, that speaks, about the talent and the physical prowess that Phil Mickelson has achieved in the last couple of years.
Right.
And if we compare Phil Mickelson's achievement that took place last week, we'll see that the last year's championship, Colin Morikawa is probably in his early 20s.
Right.
And considering Phil winning a championship and he's turning 51 next year, makes this win all the more amazing.
Right. And if we look back for the record in terms of PGA, it was somewhere in 1960s that someone won at the age of 48, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. So the last time we saw basically someone in the late 40s winning a major championship was Jack Nicklaus when he won the 1986 Masters. And I think before that, it was somewhere, as you rightly pointed out, somewhere in the 1960s. I can't recall the exact name of the golfer who won the PGA Championship. But this win is all the more incredible that, considering that we've seen that now golf has become a really, really popular sport in the US and all around the world,
Right.
and being taken up by younger golfers who've really focused on the physical aspects, due to which the golf courses and the organizers in the past couple of years have tried to sort of landscape the golf course and design it in a way in order to ward off these long-hitting golfers. So
Right.
Phil Mickelson, taking on Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, who are golfers in their
Right.
prime, who are in their late 20s and early 30s. It's really, really phenomenal.
Right. And if we talk about Mickelson, he's currently trying to focus on the next challenge, that's the Charles Schwab Challenge. And not only that, in terms of that, I just wanted to confirm, because it's been told from his scheduling that, he'll definitely take a few weeks off so that he could actually prepare for the US Open.
Yeah. So after the PGA Championship, I think he's participating in the Charles Schwab Challenge, which is going to be held at Fort Dallas Worth, Texas,
Right.
which is starting today. And then from a few weeks from now on, we've got the US Open, which is another major tournament on the golfing calendar, which starts on June 17th.
Right.
So as far as news is concerned, Phil Mickelson, I think, participating in the Charles Schwab Challenge, entering into the, Colonial, as the Charles Schwab Challenge is otherwise called. No one would have noticed Phil Mickelson, but considering the monumental victory that took place last week,
Right.
I think he's the 50-1 odds favorite winning the Charles Schwab Challenge and then going on to the US Open as well.
Right, and if we look back into time in terms of golf, there have been some serious, interesting developments in terms of people coming up. Specifically, if you look into the Asian side, a few amazing Asian golfers have actually managed to make their mark. So I think slowly and gradually people are getting into that learning phase of how golf can be a sport for everybody all across the globe.
Absolutely, Alamdar, you've rightly pointed out. The last major, the US Masters that took place a few months before, we had Hideki Matsuyama from Japan,
Right.
who managed to become the first player of Asian origin and the first Japanese player to
Right.
win a major championship. We've seen that Matsuyama was awarded a civil award by the Prime Minister of Japan.
Right.
We've seen that golf in Japan has really taken off after his victory. And we've seen the complete landscape of golf in Japan, which has drastically changed since Matsuyama's win. And let me tell you, it's not only in Japan, but in the surrounding areas as well. With Matsuyama's win, it has given a lot of boost in confidence to all these golfers in Thailand, South Korea, Japan, Thailand, where golf is really, really popular, even otherwise. So with this victory, it sort of solidifies the impact that Asian golfers are capable of winning on the international landscape as well.
Right. Let's hope the golf things actually develop in the future. Just want to know what exactly, in terms of, obviously, if you talk about the PGA, obviously the last tournament that happened, and obviously Phil Mickelson won that. I just want your intense information, in-depth analysis in terms of, obviously it was one of the most difficult courses. There were some news from different officials and even golfers who literally quoted the course as one of the most difficult courses that they'd ever been to. So how do you see the entire tournament that took place? Because we could not see, if we look at the leaderboard, we could not see the main big names that were out there, and everybody was looking forward for them. Everybody thought they would be winning.
Absolutely, Alamdar. Coming into the PGA Championship, a lot of golf forecasters had expected Jordan Spieth
Right.
to, have a great championship. Jordan Spieth coming in really hot, top 10 finishes in the last couple of months.
Right.
He won a PGA Tour event after a couple of years. So, a lot of expectations had Jordan Spieth performing well, but the putter didn't really work for him. He was tied for 30th place. Brooks Koepka, another amazing golfer, had a good first and a third round, but couldn't, sort of finish the championship towards the end. He had a bad second hole where he made a double bogey, and sort of after the first 9 holes, he lost the momentum. But I think luck favored Phil Mickelson on the final day.
Right.
After the first 9 holes, as I said earlier, Brooks Koepka couldn't really bring up the chase. But we had the South African Louis Oosthuizen, who had a really bad 13th hole where he hit it in the water, made it double bogey. and then made a birdie on the 16th hole. So Phil Mickelson in the last 4 or 5 holes, despite being the distance challenge and the Kawaiwa Islands, the sands and everything, he made a couple of bogeys, but he held on to his nerves to win. But with this win, we were talking earlier about the US Open. So Phil Mickelson now, if he manages to win the US Open, which was sort of an insurmountable, image considering his victory last week, and if he manages to win, so he might become the 5th golfer in golfing history to win a Grand Slam. Which means that he's already won the Masters, he's won the Open Championship and the PGA Championship. So with a victory at the US Open starting on June 17th, he would have completed a Grand Slam victory.
Right. So in terms of, if we talk about the US Open, obviously the PGA Tour is definitely one of the main events, one of the major events. So the US Open is also considered to be one of the major ones?
Yeah, so we've got 4 major championships that take place in a calendar year. We've got the Masters, we've got the Open Championship, the PGA Championship, and the US Open. Right. So this year's US Open is going to be held in Torrey Pines. It's a major championship. This is the only major that has eluded Phil Mickelson so far. He's won a couple of Masters, 2 PGA Championships, and 1 Open Championship. So one brief anecdote that I would like to mention is that previously Phil has won 3 tournaments which has taken place at Torrey Pines, which is this year's US Open destination. So already we are talking that considering Phil has won 3 tournaments at Torrey Pines, and if he manages to win, so he'll complete a Grand Slam. So there's a lot of excitement in the build-up to this year's US Open.
Right. I would definitely look forward for that. And I think a lot of golfers mostly take off for any tournament, for bigger tournaments. I think it's probably their way of focusing more. But don't you think that, if they're going with the flow and they're still playing and they jump into the tournament, don't you think that would be more, something that would help them maybe grow or win the tournament?
Alamdar, you've rightly pointed it out. We've seen that Collin Morikawa, he was the defending championship, the defending champion coming into the PGA Championship. Before the advent of the PGA Championship, we saw Collin Morikawa as the defending champion head down to South Carolina, make his base camp there for around 3 to 4 weeks, get acclimatized with the area, practice his putting, chipping, driving, and the entire thing. So it definitely helps golfers acclimatizing before the event even starts, and obviously it might give them a better edge come the day of the tournament. So, and major championships compared to a normal win on the PGA Tour has a lot more significance. Right. So that's why we've seen Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or any other top ranked golfers in the world, their really focus is, to win a major championship, because that's the yardstick of the greatest achievement in the game of golf.
Right. Well, Bilal, thank you so much for being a part of the show and discussing the world of golf with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alamdar.
So yes, we basically got pretty much in-depth analysis on Phil Mickelson's. He was trying to focus on the Charles Schwab Challenge, which is obviously upcoming. And not to forget that in terms of everything around, he is surely looking forward to the US Open, which obviously he's going to take a few weeks off. But let's hope for the best and good luck to him. I'll quickly jump over to the world of football. Yes, a big surprise because a lot of people were supporting Manchester United. Yes, Manchester United surely was one of the major teams that would have taken the Europa Cup, but they lost to Villarreal last night, and it was a phenomenal match. It eventually came out to penalty shootout, and at the end it was 11-10. And yes, the keeper versus the keeper was the final moment at which Villarreal managed to defeat Manchester United. It's a very sad day for Man U fans out there. But I truly understand that, if we look into Manchester United, we're talking about Europa Cup. This club now is going to make its mark onto the next level of the next year. And if we talk about Manchester United, of course, everybody knows where they stand. But it surely was one interesting title and, one interesting match. And not to forget, Villarreal won their first maiden Europa Cup title. So I think a big congratulations to the team out there. Well, this was from the world of football. I'll quickly jump over to the world of rugby. Yes, in terms of rugby, as we know, the COVID-19 situation is still on. So British and the Irish Lions squads have actually received their first COVID vaccinations. It surely is interesting. I think the rollout of the vaccines is now all across the globe. And not to forget, they're basically touring South Africa. So before the tour. They wanted to get vaccinated. So I think things will surely and gradually go on their side. And not to forget, the members will be traveling, specifically those who have been vaccinated. I think surely around the world now we're seeing the rollout of the vaccines all across the globe. So I think slowly and gradually we're getting there to fight coronavirus. Anyways, guys, this was pretty much it from the world of sports. If you want to reach out, please do on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. Till then, take good care of yourselves and bye-bye.